I never thought I'd find myself here, but the person I trusted most was living a double life. My wife Sarah and I had been married for 7 years, and I believed we had a solid foundation. We were the couple everyone admired, those who made it through tough times, celebrated each other's successes, and enjoyed spontaneous road trips. But looking back, I can now see the cracks I chose to ignore. It started with small things. Sarah began coming home late from work, claiming she had extra projects. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just stress from her job as a marketing manager. Then, her behavior changed subtly. She took long showers, spent more time on her phone, and even suggested we cut our date nights in half because she had too much on her plate. I felt a flicker of unease, but convinced myself it was nothing. The turning point came one Friday night when I decided to surprise her by cooking dinner. As I set everything up, I heard her phone buzz loudly from the other room. It was an alert from a messaging app called Signal, a name I hadn't heard before. Curious, I took a quick peek, but the screen was locked. I brushed it off, thinking it was probably work-related. However, alarm bells rang when I overheard her the next day. She was in the backyard, speaking quietly, mentioning a great time and let's keep this between us. My heart sank, but I didn't confront her. I needed more evidence. A week later, I noticed a charge on our credit card statement for a hotel in the city, somewhere we'd never been together. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off as a canceled business meeting. I wanted to believe her, but something snapped inside me. I reached out to a friend who worked nearby and casually asked if he'd heard anything about Sarah or that hotel. His face dropped and he hesitated before telling me he'd seen her there with another man. I felt utterly lost. The next day, I came home early, my heart pounding. I found her in the living room, her face flushed, trying to act natural. It didn't take long for the confrontation to erupt. "Are you cheating on me?" I blurted out, my voice trembling. Her expression was a mix of shock and something else. Guilt? Denial? Initially, she denied it, claiming I was paranoid. But the more I pressed, the more defensive she became, spinning tales that made my head spin. "You're imagining things," she said, her voice rising. "You're just trying to control me." Anger boiled inside me, and I threw the hotel charge down in front of her. The realization washed over me. She was good at lying, but the truth was seeping through the cracks. Finally, she broke down, tears streaming down her face, confessing she'd been seeing someone for months. The words hit me like a physical blow, leaving me shattered. I had never felt such betrayal. Days turned into a blur of arguments, tears, and sleepless nights. I oscillated between rage and heartbreak, drowning in self-doubt. Was I not enough? Had I missed all the signs? After a week of sleepless nights and countless discussions, we decided to separate. It wasn't easy, but I knew I needed to protect myself. The emotional fallout was immense. Friends and family had to navigate the tension, and I felt as if I was walking in a fog. There were moments I stood in my living room, staring into the distance, wondering how we had gotten here. Reflecting on everything, I've realized a few things. If something feels off, don't brush it aside. Trust your instincts. They're often more reliable than you think. Communication is crucial in any relationship, and it's easy to let small issues pile up until they become mountains. Betrayal is like a wound that takes time to heal. I'm still picking up the pieces and rediscovering who I am, but I know I'll come out stronger. To anyone going through something similar, my advice is simple. Be brave enough to confront your fears, no matter how painful it may seem. You deserve honesty, and if that's not what you're getting, it might be time to reevaluate. Life is too short to settle for anything less than the love and trust you deserve.
I never thought I'd be the guy whose wife would cheat on me, but here I am, sharing my story in the hopes that it might help someone else avoid the same heartbreak. My wife Jenna and I had been married for almost 7 years, and on the surface, everything seemed perfect. We had a cozy little house in the suburbs, a golden retriever named Max, and a pretty solid routine. We laughed together, had our inside jokes, and genuinely enjoyed each other's company. But lately, I had noticed some small changes in her behavior. She was spending more late nights at work, her phone was always face down, and there were moments when she seemed distant, like she was in a different world. The first real red flag came unexpectedly. One evening, I was working late on a project at home. Jenna came home later than usual, and I could smell perfume that wasn't hers. I brushed it off at first, maybe it was from a coworker or something she'd picked up at the store, but the way she kept glancing at her phone, quickly putting it away whenever I walked into the room, started gnawing at me. I told myself I was being paranoid, yet a nagging feeling lingered. Not long after, I overheard a conversation while at a friend's barbecue. Jenna was chatting with another couple, and I caught snippets of their discussion. They were talking about a recent work event, and I heard Jenna mention someone named Ryan in a way that made my stomach drop. She laughed at something he had done and said, "He really knows how to lighten the mood." In that moment, I felt a cold wave wash over me. I hadn't heard of this Ryan before, and it struck me as odd. My friends were there, so I didn't want to act suspicious. I let it go for the moment, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Days turned into weeks, and I started noticing more inconsistencies. Our shared credit card bill came in, and there were charges for dinners and drinks at places I knew she hadn't mentioned going to. I confronted her about it casually, trying to keep the tone light. She laughed it off, saying it was work outings she just hadn't had time to tell me about. But my gut was screaming. Then came the bombshell. One afternoon, I was picking up lunch at her favorite cafe when I spotted her through the large glass windows. She was sitting at a table across from a tall guy in a fitted shirt who was leaning in, laughing at something she said. Her hair cascading down her shoulders, her hand lightly brushing against his, felt like a punch to the gut. I froze watching them interact. I turned to leave, my heart racing, but before I got too far, I heard her laugh. A laugh I hadn't heard in weeks. It felt like a betrayal in real time, and I knew I had to confront her. When I got home, I was a storm of emotions. Anger, sadness, disbelief. I waited for Jenna to come home, and when she did, I felt a crushing weight on my chest. "We need to talk," I said. She must have sensed that something was off because she looked nervous. I recounted what I had seen, how I had felt like I was losing her in ways I couldn't understand. She went pale, her eyes darting around the room, and for a moment I hoped against hope that I had misinterpreted everything. But she didn't deny it. Instead, she turned the tables on me, saying I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, and that I had always been too controlling. The words cut deeper than the truth itself. I expected honesty, or at least some remorse, but all I got was deflection. In the days that followed, I was a mess. I spent sleepless nights replaying every moment in my head, doubting my worth and wondering where I went wrong. I sought comfort from friends, only to find they had suspected something was off too, but hadn't wanted to be the ones to tell me. Each conversation felt like another layer of betrayal. After a week of agonizing analysis, I made a decision. I couldn't stay in a relationship built on lies. I told her I wanted a divorce. The calmness I felt while saying it surprised me. It was like a weight lifted. Jenna's response was a mix of anger and confusion, and she pleaded for a chance to fix things. But I knew that trust was shattered beyond repair. In the months that followed, I learned to pick up the pieces of my life. I focused on my career, spending time with friends, and even picked up hiking, something I'd always wanted to do but never found the time for. I realized that healing is a process, not a destination. I realized the importance of loving myself first, and that it was okay to grieve the relationship I thought I had. To anyone reading this, trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't dismiss it. Communication is crucial, but don't ignore those nagging feelings. Heartbreak is painful, but it can also lead to rediscovery and strength you never knew you had. You deserve honesty and respect in every relationship. Don't settle for less.
I never imagined I'd uncover my wife's affair while cleaning the basement. Life has a way of twisting unexpectedly, doesn't it? My wife, Sarah, and I had been married for over 7 years, creating a life together that felt solid and even a bit predictable. We had our routines, Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday evening walks, and the occasional spontaneous trip that reminded us we were still young at heart. Sure, small arguments arose like in any marriage, but I genuinely believed we were doing well. Then came the subtle changes. I initially brushed them off. She was working late more often, her phone became a fortress, and she started pinning odd places on Pinterest.
I attributed it to work stress, and she had taken on a big project recently. But the evening I overheard her whispering on the phone in a voice I didn't recognize changed everything. I was in the kitchen thinking she was in the living room. "No, I can't, not here. You know what he'd say," she said, her tone laced with intimacy that made my stomach churn. I thought it was work-related, but the giggle that followed haunted me for days. Then came the financial inconsistencies. I managed our budget, so when I noticed a spike in her personal spending, new clothes, fancy dinners, I started to dig deeper. It wasn't just a few bucks, it was hundreds, and it didn't add up. I confronted her about it, and she brushed it off, claiming it was a gift for me. I wanted to believe her, but that nagging feeling wouldn't let go. I began to observe her more closely, searching for clues. One Thursday night, everything came crashing down. I was working late as a graphic designer when a mutual friend texted me about a local event. Sarah had lied about being in a late meeting. Instead, she was out with her work colleagues. Something twisted in my gut. I decided to leave early and check it out. As I approached the venue, I spotted her car parked outside. My heart raced. I slipped inside, blending into a crowd, and there they were, Sarah, laughing, leaning into a man I recognized only from a few occasions. They were too close, sharing a bottle of wine, fingers brushing as if it were the most natural thing. I froze. I wanted to confront her, but my feet wouldn't move. I felt like a spectator in a terrible play. I retreated into the shadows, taking deep breaths. This wasn't the Sarah I knew. I managed to leave unnoticed and drove home, my mind racing. When I got back, Sarah was home, a bit too cheerful, and my heart sank. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, her voice light, that fake brightness sticking out like a thorn in the side. Anger boiled beneath my skin. I confronted her, disbelief and betrayal spilling out. "You were at the festival with him, weren't you?" I yelled, the weight of the truth crashing down. She turned pale, the color draining from her face. For a moment, I thought she might confess, but instead she slipped into defense mode, crying and claiming it was all a misunderstanding. "We were just friends, I swear, you're being ridiculous." I felt despair creeping in. How could she lie so easily? The woman I loved felt like a stranger. The emotional fallout was suffocating. I was devastated. Self-doubt crept in like a thief in the night. I questioned everything about our marriage. Was I not enough? Did I fail her? Those thoughts poisoned my mind. I spent sleepless nights replaying everything, desperately searching for missed clues. As days turned into weeks, I realized I deserved more than this game of deceit. I consulted a lawyer, not because I wanted a divorce, but to protect myself. It wasn't easy, and I felt profound sadness each time I spoke with the lawyer. Sarah tried to reach out, expressing remorse, but her words felt hollow against her actions. One night, she sat across from me, tears rolling down her cheeks, promising she could change. But I couldn't take the risk anymore. I had been an option, not a priority. Deciding to move forward with the divorce was gut-wrenching. I grieved the life we had built, the dreams we had shared. It felt like burying a part of myself intertwined with her for so long. In the aftermath, I learned valuable lessons. Trust your instincts. When something feels off, don't ignore it. You deserve someone who prioritizes you, your feelings, your well-being. Healing takes time, and it's okay to seek support from friends, family, or professionals. I'm still on that journey, learning to love myself again and rediscovering who I am without her shadow. If you're reading this and sense something isn't right in your relationship, listen to that feeling. It could save you from heartbreak. Life is too precious to spend it with someone who doesn't value you the way you deserve.